Well, Todd, we are up on YouTube. So say hi. Hi, YouTube.
Hi, YouTube.
Pause for a couple seconds and we'll get ready for the podcast. Of course, YouTube will be unedited. Todd, welcome to Podcasters Home. It's you're going to be episode 4 in this new show. It's all about podcasters, and it's called actually Podcaster, not Podcasters Home. That's the website.
Well, thanks for having me, Bill. Appreciate it.
So I'd say, are you ready to do a podcast or create a podcast or ignite? But that's taken already. That fire thing.
Yeah. It's just like I'm born ready to do a podcast anytime.
Yep, it's awful hard here in Reno, and you're in Hawaii today.
Yeah, well, I'm always in Hawaii, but with no trade winds, so it's pretty miserable here. It feels like Guam.
Yeah, there must be a high pressure going across the country right now, and going into Hawaii because it's really hot here too. So let's get into this podcast. First of all, tell us how you got into podcasting. I know you had a career in the Navy. You got out, you did some tech work or something, and then you ended up in podcasting. So how did that go? How did that happen?
Well, actually, I was still in the Navy, and I got hurt in 2004. I got broke my back, and they grounded me from flying and set me on a desk. And instead of, you know how it is when you're broke in the military, that's not a good thing. And so I found myself a job and working contract procurement stuff out of Waco, Texas. And they sent me to babysit airplanes. And I was wearing a chest cavity thing, body cast at the time, and spent a lot of time inside because it was 125 degrees. And heard about this thing called podcasting, October 2004. I actually launched my show in a hotel room on I-35 in Waco, Texas, of all places.
2004. The first time I heard about was 2005 between deployments.
October 2004 was the when they started the show. Yeah,
I know it was hard to do back then. So
it was you had to. We made everything up as we went.
So what was your first show?
It's still the same show I do today. It's a tech show. It's called Geek News Central.
Oh, you got like 1,000.
Yeah,
1,000 episodes on
41 episodes. Yeah, 10 years plus at this point.
You've had a few shows though. I saw. Didn't you have a show called Chrome or something like that?
I did the Chrome show. Tried that a little bit. That was just kind of a side project. And of course, the main one that I do in addition to Geek News Central is the new media show with Rob Greenlee, where we actually talk podcasting every weekend. But Geek News Central is what, for better words, what keeps the lights on and keeps the bills paid. And besides what I do at RawVoice.
I listen to a lot of podcasts, but that's a regular for me. I listen to it not every episode, but at least once a month. I go through a cycle. I try to stay current, listening to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of podcasts too.
Well, it's just amazing how many new podcasts are coming out every day. You just can't keep up with them at this point.
Well, that's a good lead into the next question. You have Blubrry as your company.
Yeah, we work with, I guess there's about 40,000 people that use our PowerPress podcasting plugin. A portion of those host with us and use our media statistics, and we provide enterprise statistics to companies like ESPN, Moody Radio, companies in the UK I can't talk about, and really a lot of celebrity shows. So that's kind of our service side. We also do advertising for podcasters as well. That's not as big of a part of our business as it used to be, but it's still a pretty big portion of it. Well, but that's the day job.
Yeah, I have 5 shows that I work on or around, and 3 of them are mine. And we use your plugin in all the websites. That's the only one we use. It's priced right.
Oh, it's free. And in fact, we just launched a Patreon campaign today for it. So hopefully people will help support the ongoing development of it.
Well, when we start making that $200,000 a month, we'll definitely chip in. But driving on, how did you get into Blubrry? How did that all evolve? That must have been a lot of work. And how did you figure it out?
Well, it was kind of a weird deal. When I started my podcast, my wife gave me 2 years to make money. She basically said, this thing's got to pay for itself. You're spending every Monday, Thursday night doing a show. You give it 2 years. So I was on the clock. December of 2004, Wiley Publishing contacted me, asked me to write the first book on podcasting. I did that. That was released in May of 2005. It sold about 45,000 copies. It was the biggest selling tech book, how to do book in Wiley's history. I won a couple of big awards on that from Amazon and from New York Times. But July of 2005, GoDaddy called me and said, we want you to want to sponsor your show. And I said, sure. And so I kind of solved the situation with making money for the show. Matter of fact, we just celebrated 10 years. This month, July, is 10 years and 1 month since GoDaddy's been a sponsor of this podcast, or my podcast.
Well, GoDaddy's pretty loyal there. Wow.
Yeah, they've been absolutely fantastic. I just, matter of fact, put a blog post up on geeknewscentral.com about it this afternoon. But, they they were the genesis. And what really ended up happening was, is a couple months into the campaign, they called me, and the magic words that Chris, my rep, said, she said, "Do you know any other shows that want to do advertising?" And I was like, there's a business there. And from that, on my own show, I basically said, I need a programmer, I need a graphics guy, I need a business guy, I need a lawyer. And 9 people, 8 people responded. I think 9 people responded from my audience. Did a conference call after I told them what was involved and how much they'd have to write a check for to be involved in the business. I think 5 of them hung up, and the core team that is today, the core owners of the team are the same, with the exception of one person. And RawVoice slash Blubrry.com was born. RawVoice was is the primary company we do business under. So if you get a check from us, it comes from RawVoice, but all our properties are an extension of that. One thing that we basically started launching a site that was way early before its time. We called it the Podcaster News Site, and basically we wanted people to come in and do like local news clips of what was going on in their community. It was really 10 years too early, but we kind of learned from that, and then we launched Blubrry.com. 2008, we determined that the existing plugin that was available for WordPress called PodPress was not getting the attention it needed. We were basically from that necessitated us putting out our own plugin, PowerPress, and from there, really, it's kind of exploded into the additional services. We've been doing podcast statistics from the beginning, though, so we've added the hosting and a whole host of other things over the past 5 or 6 years.
Very good. And now on the hosting, do you you have a type of hosting you can either manage it on the WordPress site or you can manage it, just have the RSS feed stay at Blubrry?
Yes, either way, the probably 97, 98% of the folks use the WordPress, PowerPress, Blubrry podcasting hosting combination. It's integrated within WordPress. They just upload the media right in their own website to us. Then we take care of the CDN. There's a portion of folks that come in that are self-hosted on Blubrry.com as well. Not that many, but we actually got an exciting product announcement coming at Podcast Movement about some new things we're going to be introducing that are going to help those folks out a lot. But really, it's a full service package, and we've got something there for everybody.
So what do you recommend on the hosting?
I
Basically,
really, I really think the best way to go for is to be honest with you, easy is just coming up and signing up to Blubrry and launch it over there. But to do it right, you need a WordPress site. You need to install the plugins of your choice, the template of your design, build your brand, install
right.
PowerPress. You don't even have to host with us. We appreciate when you do because that helps us keep the salaries paid. But we definitely want people to build their own brands on their own .coms.
Well, we have two shows coming up, and one of them's going to host with you. So,
Outstanding. Look
so
forward to.
you know,
You're going to
think
save a lot of time.
think
I'm
about
sorry.
this business though is, and you'll understand this. Every time you get a new element or service, and you're one of the top, we know that you have to learn it, and it's time.
Right.
And you talk about it all the time on your shows about podcasters don't have time.
Yep.
They're so busy creating content, and there's so much to do because usually they're one-person shows, aren't they?
Yeah. Our goal was to get out of the way. We want people to get in and get out, and focus on the content, and they have to do a little bit of legwork to begin with. But once that's done, everything else should run on autopilot. And that's the goal, is to focus on the content, not on necessarily the site, the stuff. But we feel that there is a certain amount of stuff you have to do if you want to be successful long term. You just can't shortcut in this space at all.
Right. I have a show called Politics, and right now, Marc Maron and I are sitting right next to each other. What do you
Cool.
think about Marc Maron interviewing the president, and what kind of effect do you think is that going to have on podcasting?
I think it's gonna, I think you're gonna see a lot more politicians picking and choosing the right shows to go on to. I think the folks, any podcaster should listen to Marc Maron's show number 614, the post show. You want to listen to what it took to get that interview and the legwork and over a year's worth of, kind of discussions with the White House. And regardless of your politics, I think it's an important episode to listen. Both those are important episodes to listen to. And Marc has been doing interviews for many years. He's well honed, finished, and they would not have gotten that call unless someone at the White House was not a fan. So that's another thing too. Never underestimate who's listening to your show, because you may have a White House staffer or a senator's aide or whatever, and that's how you're going to get in the door to get those big, fat, juicy interviews.
On New Media Gold, which is sort of my business site, I have examples of new media, and one of them is the president doing a Google Plus Hangout. Now we can add this podcast.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be big, and I think a lot of people were taken aback. Of course, there was some controversy. Controversy is always good in any
Oh,
type of interview. It gets more news.
yeah, the N word,
So
is that it?
yeah, and, so, there was everything was a wash of that, but everything was in this podcast, in this podcast, in this podcast. So that did more for building the space than probably the interview itself,
I am not a,
but
I'm not a news junkie, but that day when I heard that I watched the news like once a day, and
right,
when I heard that Marc Maron was on and did a podcast, I heard it and they call it digital radio. I forgot.
yeah.
I listened to NBC, CBS, I think Fox, and one station called it digital radio. One station called it correctly a podcast, and they like to say a podcast.
And then, I think, too, we did an interview with Rob Walsh from over at Libsyn. They host Mark's show, and he talks about what he saw from that. So that's a good episode to listen to on the show that I do with Rob Greenlee at newmediashow.com.
That's
It
your
kind of
most recent new media. Yeah,
yeah, that's
that's
the most recent one.
that's a good one. I listened to that one. Also, Rob was on my Politics of Success. He, of course, was very active in 2004, 2005 in the presidential campaigns.
Right.
And
I
he's
try.
go,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say because I do a tech show, man, politics is not a good thing to talk about in tech.
I try to stay nonpartisan on my show. And in fact, I have more Democrats than Republicans on the show because the Republicans don't get it. And
Well,
go ahead.
it, I'm not talking to either of them.
Uh, prior to 9
or
11,
about 'em. Or about basically it's tech and politics don't mix.
you know what? In campaigns, they do.
They do,
The
but
modern campaign, it very much does.
yeah, if I'm doing it twice a week, the thing is you have to be careful as a content creator. You have the opportunity to piss off 50% of your audience, by being opinionated. If you have a politics show, that's fine. Have a politics show.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have a show that's non-politics, you need to be careful.
I had a business, 9 years military, had a business, and somehow I got elected to city council. Long story. You have a city about 200,000.
Right.
And I really upset a lot of people and lost half my business. So I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And it doesn't take too much to irritate an audience. When I announced my book on episode 67, all the way back to the beginning, that was kind of an incredible. Well, it was actually show 69. It was an incredible day because I lost half my audience because half my audience said you sold out, you took money. Back then, it wasn't. In the early days, it wasn't cool to take money podcasting. We were all doing it for the artistic value, but I had a business plan from the get go. So, I recovered and I'm still here.
Very good. Very good. So what do you see the future of podcasting?
It's growing. It's steady. We're in the limelight again. We need about 100 more serials. Any type of show that's successful, I don't care who creates it, is good for the space. And what it also does is it forces the content creators that are coming on board now and looking at those success stories. It's forcing them to reevaluate the gear they're using and to make sure that their production quality is up to snuff. Because let's face it, some of the like Serial was highly produced, and if your show's not highly produced, and you're trying to attract a bigger audience, you might have to invest in a little bit of equipment to at least make it sound that NPR sound, not necessarily have to be exactly the same. I think it's going to force podcasters to be on their game a little higher.
Well, that's a great question to transition into bottom line upfront questions. By the way, that's an old military term. It's actually bluff, bottom line upfront. I say bottom line questions. Most people
Right.
don't know that. But what equipment do you use? And this is going to be a great question for you because
Yeah.
you got equipment all over the place.
Oh, I do. The mic that I'm using is a Blue Mouse.
Uh-huh.
I really think if a content creator is going to be in this space, this is your number one tool. The quality of the mic that you're using is very important. I'm one of the few that uses a condenser mic. I don't use a dynamic mic. But and then the gear stack I have is, if I had the studio to rebuild over again, I'd probably do a little different. But I use a standard Mackie mixer. I've got a gate compressor back there, so I've got the windows open in the studio right now. There was a guy that was out mowing the lawn earlier. You probably didn't hear him. There was enough isolation from that. But I did go big on the video side, and you see part of the video rig. But I'm I've got 6 cameras here in the studio. I use a TriCaster 865 from NewTek. Started out small though. Again, if you're a brand new content creator and you are looking to do video, there's much cheaper ways to build a video podcast studio these days with Wirecast and a variety of other products. But I think it's important that you spend the right amount of money to have the right kind of sound. It doesn't mean you have to spend it immediately because of the failure rate of shows, or the pod fading is pretty high. Most shows don't make it to show 25. If you make it to episode 25, I would say that you probably can invest a little bit more money in gear. So in the beginning, as you're learning the trade, maybe it's not as important to have the good gear. But it's if you're going to do this and build an audience, you need to spend some money. Luckily, people are more willing to do that today. But I have one saying: "Friends don't let friends buy Behringer." You don't,
I
you
had a
know.
Behringer. I have one Behringer mixer.
Okay, so your friends don't let friends buy Behringer, and have a little, and they've
I
done.
don't have
They're
one
doing
now.
that.
I'm not using a Behringer.
They're doing better, but it's not where I would want people to be. And some people take offense to that, but buy a good mic, buy a Heil PR40 or buy a RE20. There's lots of great mics out there. Get a good mic and a good amplifier. The amplifier that I have back there is probably it's a Solo 610. It probably costs more than most people ever invest in their entire studio. So I have one piece of gear that is tied to this mic that gives me the sound I really want.
So if you're just starting out, what would you recommend for a new podcaster?
When I started, I used a LabTech headset.
Oh yeah. I
I
no,
wouldn't
I
go
wouldn't
that.
recommend a headset.
I wouldn't go that low.
No.
To be honest with you, buy a good USB mic. There's a lot of them that are being recommended. I think that ATR 2010 or something like that. That's a decent
2100 and a 2005.
2100. Yeah.
I like the 205 a little better. It's I set somebody up with that and he liked it.
But I cringe really. I think that if a person's going to start a show, and also if you spend the money, you're more inclined to stick with it a little longer.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can afford $1,000 worth of equipment, there's some great packages. I've got some packages on my website at geeknewscentral.com. There's a link in there that what does it say? And I'm going to have to look, but there's a gear recommendations, and there's really the whole stack from low to high.
We'll have those links on the website
Sure.
for sure. I didn't know you had that. I've listened to shows. It's funny how many times people will listen to shows and won't go to the websites.
Right.
Right.
Well, I think having a website's important.
No,
Yeah, go ahead.
you can't make money without a website per se. If you a little bit.
Right. And you can't build brand awareness. I get new subscribers every day just because of Google. Not a lot of podcasters can say that, but I got 13,000 articles on my website, and only, probably 3,000 total are actual podcast type content, interviews, and the actual show.
So how do you get all those blogs?
When I was didn't have the budget, I wrote every day.
Mhm.
I wrote an article every day, or maybe every couple days. Now I'm lucky enough. I have about 3 or 4 people that write articles for me. They write what they want to write about. I kind of send them stuff from time to time. But my typical budget, my blogger budget, is $600-700 a month for folks that are just doing writing for me. But it pays back dividends for me in the amount of traffic I get from Google. For me, it's just one of the tactics that I use to gain listeners, and that's kind of a weird way to say it, but it's just one of the things that I do.
Do you know what theme you're using on your website? Is that a Genesis base?
It's a Genesis theme. Tweaked it myself. Matter of fact, my team had actually designed me a template. We never got it cut, so I got tired of waiting for them. So I would expect, and I try to change up the theme every couple of years. That is important to stay fresh. Make sure you have right now, a big focus on material design, being mobile ready. The site does that, and that makes it a better mobile experience when someone hits your site with a mobile phone. So you want them to have the same experience on mobile as they do, in a browser on a desktop.
Yeah, I really like Genesis. That's the one way there's 2 ways I monetize. I build websites for podcasters, basically. I don't compete against the people trying to train people in podcasting. In fact, there's a lot of free sources I can tell you how to learn how to podcast. You know
Right.
that. You have the sources too.
I prefer free over paying someone $1,000 to be in some insane mastermind. Yes,
But I can save a lot of
think free's
time
good.
and get you set up with a site and help you through it, hook everything in, start building your mail list. But I use Genesis with Dynamic, but Genesis with any theme is really good. And I love Genesis. It just works. It's a good, solid theme, and it's good for podcasters too.
It is. It's a little heavy on the overhead. So if you're on the most cheap hosting plan,
Yeah.
I would go a little better hosting plan running Genesis, but if you run a standard WordPress template, you're probably fine.
Well, that's one of the questions we ask. Who do you use for hosting? GoDaddy?
I am on GoDaddy. Part of my stuff is on Amazon just because I have such
S3.
heavy loading issues, but most of the websites are on GoDaddy. On GoDaddy.
Amazon S3?
Yeah, I use some of that for like image loading and that type of stuff.
Right. They have PDFs or other attachments to bring in. I've heard that's a pretty good way to go these days.
Right.
So we got your media host. We got a lot of things. Any favorite technologies that you really like that you're?
Well, I keep it simple. A lot of people spend a lot of money for mailing list software. I've used Google Groups for years. I use the announce only mode on that. I doesn't have any limits. And it's free, so I've been using that for many years, and it's served me well for sending out my newsletter. So
Really?
anytime I don't have to write a check, it's fantastic. So my entire podcast list is over on a announce only Google group.
Announce
And
only.
yeah, you can set it up so you don't have this back and forth. You just make it so one person can post, everyone else gets the blast. And it's one of the best kept secrets in the space. People are paying MailChimp and all these other folks $50, $60, $70 a month. Okay, good luck with that. I don't like writing checks.
I set people up with MailChimp on the free program, and they collect email basically. It's an easy way to collect email with MailChimp, up to 2,000.
Right.
But that's a great idea for sending out announcements.
Yeah. Where I don't skimp is on my ad server. I use a company called AdSpeed for my ad server for my website. But I'm big on social tools right now. I use Mention.com. They're big. It's really a great intelligence tool. I use Hootsuite for announcements and that type of stuff and monitoring a lot of the feeds. Mention.com is more of a intelligence type of system. As far as being able to detect who's talking about you, where, when, and how, and it finds articles that I would never find on my own. I use HipChat as a matter of fact. They just are going to be their brand new sponsor of my show this month. I've been using them for a while. I'm a big fan of their collaborative. If you have a team, HipChat is a product that I like. What else? Boy, oh boy, I use an Infusion. What's the name of it? Boy, I'm going to be in trouble here. Yeah, Infusionsoft.
But you do use Infusionsoft.
Yeah, for my basic.
That's a tough
business.
That's a tough business application. That's sort of an advanced application.
And what I like about no, I use Insightly.
Oh, Insightly, yeah. Infusionsoft
yeah.
It's got that hybrid business. It's a really tough one.
Yeah, Insightly is cool. It's tied into Google Apps. It's basically it's for the business side. It's for content management, tracking projects, all that stuff. But my development team uses Jira. That's you've got a programming team. Really like that. It's a non-podcaster tool, but I really love that product. So what else have I used for tools? I'm on Facebook and Google Plus, hanging out there and watching the chit chat.
You're really good about Facebook and posting and going across the groups.
Yeah, and it's that's a challenge for all content creators too, because oftentimes there's stuff I want to say and I have to be careful not to say it because I go against community rules. So I have to just kind of, have to be quiet. So.
Well, here in Reno, we have a thunderstorm starting to come this direction.
Oh,
and I just heard the thunder and lightning, and there's lightning out there too. So we're going to go on to the next part, tying it all together. So
sure.
We'll finish up on time here, which will be really good. So in tying it all together, we sort of modified this a little bit from the earlier questions. This is, you're going to be episode number 4. Yep. And this is being built by people who've given comments after they've done the podcast and people I know in podcasting. So in tying it all together, what podcast do you listen to?
Oh, I listen to a lot, but one of my favorites, believe it or not, is No Agenda by Adam Curry. I listen to him on a regular basis.
It's hard to listen regularly if you listen to a lot of podcasts.
it's a long show, so
Yeah.
I might catch one episode a week if I'm lucky,
Yep.
and they only do 2 because
Yep.
it's 3 hours.
That's a good way to
But
do it.
yeah, but because I'm in the space, I'm constantly I probably in and out of 100 shows a week, just on purpose, and it's sometimes a show
100.
gets a full listen, sometimes they get 2 minutes.
That's
So
100. I thought I did a lot. 100.
well, and really, I'm just kind of sampling. I mean, I'm doing a lot of, I'm driving down the road,
Uh huh.
and on my in my car dashboard, I'm hitting forward when I don't like a show, and I'm actually keep audio notes of each podcast that I listen to, and it just is kind of I'm building information really about shows, and that's the business I'm in, so I have to do that. But that's it's maybe good advice. You've got about 2, 3 minutes to capture a new listener. If you're goofing off and screwing around that first 2 or 3 minutes and not getting going,
Right.
or if you don't have a format, and even I tell everybody that listen to my show, there's a format here and here's what's coming. If you don't give people an incentive to stay, they're gone. It's
I
just like a website.
started putting a little piece. I did this last year. A little piece up front somewhere from the show, just up front to grab people's attention and then
Yep.
get going. Very good advice. So, in closing, and this is the kind of fun rule that came up with a group of podcasters, and they said this would be a great idea to find out what are podcaster success principles. And people look at them in different directions, personal, business. But what are your 7 success principles? You can explain them too. And now we'll finish up the
Okay.
show.
All right. So good. I'm glad I get to explain them. So let me go through them real quick. Work like a dog. Don't rest on your laurels. Be consistent. Think twice before hitting send. Focus on strengths. The customer is always right, and demand the best out of your team. Now, going back to work like a dog, I often got asked in the early days, "How are you accomplishing what you're accomplishing?" And the answer was simple. I worked 20 hours a day. Um,
What, when you're in the Navy?
well,
You learn
I
long
learned
flights.
I learned to work hard,
Yeah.
and this is if you're going to build a show, you're going to have your day job. You're going to work 8, 10 hours a
Right.
day in your day job, and then you're going to come home and you're going to need to put in time on your show. So talk with your wife and get that square before you end up divorced. But you have to work like a dog. Number 2, don't rest on your laurels. It's real easy. I got a great audience. I've got a great sponsor, but you have to continue to build, look to innovate, not become you don't want to be that guy that's left behind. So don't rest on your laurels. Keep innovating, keep listening, keep your ears open. The consistency stuff is probably the most important. For the first probably 5 years that I did my show, you can probably count on one hand the number of episodes I missed in the first 5 years.
How often
That
did you have
was
a show?
twice a week,
Okay.
Monday, Thursday,
That's
like the
impressive.
mailman. It delivered. Now, there was a couple exceptions, a death in the family, well, the death of my dad.
Your dad with
Uh,
train tracks, wasn't it?
yeah, on
Became
episode
involved.
200. It just, there was a few missed shows that I missed, but I sent out email blast saying, "Hey, I'm not doing a show because of this." Now that I'm 10 years in, you can't sustain that level all the time. So what I basically the audience knows my rules. I go to CES. I don't do any shows at CES because I'm recording 200 interviews that will come up on the website after the show. And when I go to NAB, I don't do any podcasts because again, we're doing interviews. More stuff will come up. If I go on travel and it's I land someplace on a Monday and it's a Monday night, there's not going to be a show. So the audience really knows when I'm home in Honolulu, they're going to get an episode unless something like my son graduated, they didn't get an episode that day. Otherwise, be consistent. Now, that's just given. You're not going to grow your share if you're not consistent. And record them early and put them out later if you have to. Think twice before hitting send. Man, sometimes you're getting an email. It's going to really piss you off. I mean, it's going to make you so mad. You're going to hit reply and you're going to write 5 paragraphs. Write the 5 paragraphs, get it out of your system, and delete the email. Think twice before you hit send because you're not taking that back. So you have to, there's sometimes it's just better to push yourself away from the table and take a walk or whatever, but think twice before hit send. Focus on your strengths. I've learned very quickly what my weaknesses are, and I was lucky enough to be able to hire people around me that were able to do what I was weak in. And if you can't do that, if you don't have someone you can hire, get a teammate or get someone that a volunteer. Oh, I have a person on my show that keeps track of all our contests and any listener email and stuff like that. And he's a volunteer and he helps keep that stuff clear because I was bad at it from mailing prizes and that kind of stuff. So focus on your strengths and get people that can help you um, that may not or tried to. Customer's always right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Sorry. Thank you for being with us. Yes, we'll give you a refund. The show wasn't good. Great. Let me do what I can do to. You can agree to disagree, but the customer's always right, and it can be applied for a listener. That's just it's been said for years and years, and it follows through your podcast. And if you have a team, demand the best out of the team. Don't take subpar work. If you have to put you have to, lead with a little stick and rudder, you have to do that. So demand the best out of your team.
Well, that's really good. Good way to finish up. One follow-up question, though, and you mentioned
Sure.
something. You said volunteers. That's a great idea. I've never heard anybody say that in podcasting, is try to find
Oh,
volunteers to help you.
your P1 listeners, the super fans, they want to help. So have them, empower them, and have a little call, do a little chit chat, get on the phone with them, have them monitor the chat room, give them access to a social media account where you give them some access, let them be empowered. You'll be surprised. You may make a business alliance, and that person may go with you to the next level where you can bring them on as an employee, and they are paid versus a volunteer. And there was a gentleman that we have right now he started as a blogger. I was watching what he was doing in Facebook. I told the team, I said, man, he's great in tech support. Why don't we offer him a position? Brought him on board as a tech support. He watches our social media space. And yet I don't restrict him from talking and helping other people with other systems or with other customers on his own time. But, we go out and again, we focus on people's strengths. And we find people that work around us.
I met many of your employees at MNX, and they're spread out across the country, aren't they?
Yeah.
They all come
New York.
together a few times.
Yeah. Yeah, a few times a year. Winter in Chicago, of all places, is where we have a big group meeting. But I'm in Hawaii. Sean is in California. Mike is in Michigan. The programming team and admin is in Columbus. Jeff is in New York. And two tech support guys. Mike is in Michigan. So is Barry. Barry's finance and lawyer.
Wow.
So, we're all over the place. We started virtual. That's the way we built. I didn't ever expect I'd have to have an office, but we do now.
Well, I hear the thunder approaching, coming strong, and we still have a good podcast. We're finishing up. So what's the best way the listener can find you?
A couple of ways. GeekNewsCentral.com is the show. Follow me on Twitter at Geek News. Of course, we want you to come over to Blubrry.com if you're a podcaster and list your show over there. Use our services. If you're a PowerPress user, thanks for using the plugin. Definitely send us suggestions. There's two emails. Personal email is geeknews@gmail.com, and the business email is CEO@RawVoice.com. And we've got lots of great support folks willing to help people out on the podcasting side, and we want you to get subscribed to my tech show and, of course, the New Media Show with Rob Greenlee and I at newmediashow.com. So a lot of places to catch me, but thanks for giving the opportunity here, Bill.
Thank you, Todd, for coming on right before the 4th of July here. And you're so busy, I know, with the holidays and the solar. It's a solar...
Solar Impulse. Yeah.
Coming your direction, right?
Yeah, it's going to land in the morning. It's a solar-powered aircraft that is doing a around-the-world trip. Flew out of Nagoya, Japan, 4 days, 6 hours, and 44 minutes ago. I'm watching the live stream.
Yeah. I know you're in that welcome crew coming in, right?
Yeah, I got some press access, so it'll be fun to go down there tomorrow. Yeah.
Well,
thanks.
Thank you again. Stay on for a few minutes. The YouTube will continue, and this is the end of the podcast. So good. Todd, a quick question. We're
Sure.
still on YouTube. Could you explain how you do the double Skype feed when they have guests on?
Oh.
Is that a trick or magic?
The picture-in-picture one?
You're on YouTube still. Yeah. Well, you have, you bring,
Right
I guess
now
you can bring 3 people onto Skype, can't you?
I can bring 2.
2.
Yeah. So if you want to see how it's wired up, you go to geeknewscentral.com/studio, and then there's a link in there for the Skype setup. And it's just kind of like a double loop back. Now I can change Like I can right now, I don't have very many cameras on. I can actually change the camera you see me
Yeah,
in.
we're on YouTube right now, so you can give us a little
Yeah.
demo.
So they can actually see another camera. I don't have all the studio turned up right now, so I can't show you everything.
Is this your
But
bedroom? Are you in a bedroom or?
this is a spare room, yeah.
Oh wow,
So
it
it's
looks nice.
been made into a studio, much to the chagrin of my wife. But on the, really what we've done is it's pretty simple. The two Skype connections come into a Mac Mini, and there's two Mac Minis, so I
Mm-hmm.
have separate computers set up. The video out, the HDMI out, goes into an HDMI splitter. So I send the two HDMIs up on the screen. I send the other two HDMIs to a HDI to SDI converter, which feeds the TriCaster. So I have two video feeds coming into the TriCaster. So I can actually show the audience. Let's see here. Which channel are you on? You're on 5. So I can actually show
Oh wow,
the audience you.
wow. And yeah,
And I could show the audio while the other computer's not on. So
do you do the like the PowerPoints
I can.
and the
Um,
keynote?
I'm
You can do that too up there. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is it's a program that's provided by New Tech called IVGA,
Uh-huh.
and it'll basically I have a separate monitor here. That's the reason for the extra monitor in this room. It gets a little monitor crazy. Let's see if I can show. Yeah, it's this monitor here. Whatever I put on here, then I can duplicate on the screen, and I don't have that particular piece turned on right now, but I'll be able to put up websites, PowerPoints, or whatever, and have it there and actually displayed just as you're seeing me right now on the screen. So, and it'll actually pick up audio too. So if there's a clip in there I need to play, I don't have to have any special wiring out
Are,
of another computer
are you
back
using
in.
Mac Minis? You said for all your work
I
there.
I know. I have, 2 Mac Minis. I have the TriCaster is Windows-based. My primary machine here is
Oh,
Windows-based. But I do have a Mac Pro that is down on the floor that, I use
laptop.
as actually a, bucket,
Okay.
the
Yeah, yeah, the nice one.
trash can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does video capture, and I do all my video editing. My goal really is after I get done doing the audio and video for my show is 15 minutes. The audio is encoded.
Uh-huh.
The video is starting to be encoded, and that includes audio processing on both pieces. So what happens then is I start my show notes. I hear a ding from the Mac Pro about 15 minutes later. I go to go back to it, and I upload the video to into the service. And then by the time I'm done with my show notes, everything's uploaded. So about 45 minutes post show, I'm done.
You do
So
your own editing then.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I do all
Okay.
my own
That's,
editing.
a
Now,
lot of people are contracting that out. A lot of people, especially you know, the
yeah,
businesses, movie stars, whatever.
but mine's a time-based show.
Wow.
So as soon as before I start recording, my material's already dying.
Mhm.
So 96 hours, I've burned almost all my downloads for every episode. There is no evergreen content in my content. um,
Really.
on the Geek News Central show. There's none. It's news based, so
Hmm.
it's just like listen to CNN or whatever channel that's your news junkie, but it's tech news. Uh,
You were at the National Broadcasters Convention.
right?
You saw how much money is in the broadcasting side, the
Yeah.
billions of dollars, equipment
Yep.
systems. I think
Yep.
they're in trouble because a
Oh,
podcaster or
there.
someone
Oh,
doing like
there.
you're doing could have a little TV show. The news pops up every night at 6 o'clock and you can watch it all night
Yeah.
on
You
your
don't want
iPhone.
to know. You don't want to know what this studio costs.
I know it looks.
But I want folks to understand. Are watching this. You don't have to spend that kind of money anymore. I built this when the other stuff wasn't available. Now there's so many more options. You can build what I have here today and have almost the same function for probably 10 grand. It seems it's still a lot,
Yeah.
but again, multiple cameras. If you're doing a single camera shoot, bringing in a Skype connection, nowhere near that kind of money. But really, video is, as you know, it's a beast.
If you could get
And
3 partners or 4 partners in little cities, a couple 100,000, male, female reporters going out with a camera, shooting each other, bringing it in, live feeding, talking, interviewing people like you are, put it up every night. You've got a TV show, and you could sell advertising for your local town.
right.
It's coming. I think it's coming.
So what I do now is I even freelance. I have a new tech TriCaster Mini, and it's a 4-channel HDMI system, and does everything that this big system does. But only difference is it's got 4 channels instead of 8. And I can take that thing anywhere. I can set up in 20 minutes and be live.
Ooh,
Um, it's incredibly fast to set up. I roll out with 2 Pelican cases, and again, 15, 20 minutes, I'm up and running.
when's your next show?
Here's the interesting thing. You know what I've been doing? A lot of retirements. Folks that are here in Hawaii are retiring
Hmm.
from the military. They're doing this big, elaborate retirement ceremony, and then all their family in the mainland can't afford to come. So I live stream retirements for military guys that families can't come. Now, usually a grandma or a parent will be here, but the aunts, uncles, and
Hmm.
people that you grew up with, they are not here because they can't fly in. So I'm doing
That's nice.
Fridays and Saturdays. I'm doing a lot of those.
That's very good. That's
Yeah.
well, I appreciate that. That's I mean, the world is changing. I actually do a
It's
live stream once a month in a casino for a group that meets for lunch. I just set up my little camera. I use Google
right.
Plus Hangout. What do you use?
Yeah.
Last question. What do you use for streaming?
I use YouTube.
Oh, YouTube. I do too. The
Yeah.
YouTube site. It's
For
great.
free.
It's great.
Free.
You
No
know.
ads.
Yeah.
Free.
Okay. Another question. Sorry. Why, education teaching? Why don't they have like
Yeah.
a YouTube channel in every classroom, free, live? So if a student's sick or can't make it in, they could just watch it. At least,
Accountability.
at
They
least
don't want the parents seeing what's really going on in the classroom. Come on now.
At least the college classes, maybe some of the senior high school classes.
It's the whole that's the industry that's really gonna have be shooken up here soon is the is that
Education, they said the money in education is going to disappear because of technology and the different, so much
yeah.
more ways to get educated. Yeah,
And companies want to train people
yeah.
now, and they'd almost rather take them and make them an intern for 6 months, pay them a decent wage, and then convert them as a full-time employee.
Well, Todd, I appreciate the time. Again, we're on YouTube, and
Yep.
we went a little bit long. YouTube will be up soon, of course, but I'm not sure when the podcast will come up. But thanks. Take care, and I'll
Yeah.
see you. What's the next conference you're going to?
I'll be at Podcast Movement in end of
Okay.
July. Yep.
Well, I only make like one major a year. That's in Las Vegas. Someday podcast movement. But somebody needs to go out there and do like WordPress camps with podcasts for $40.
Yeah, they're the podcast movement folks are actually doing some cities
Yeah.
going around, but the problem that's happened in the past is that the word camps turned into social media camps
Hmm.
is what happened.
Yeah.
So,
Well, thanks, Todd.
hey, thank you.
Take care.